Is going on a Royal Caribbean cruise by yourself as crazy as it sounds? I've actually got a couple of reasons why you absolutely should give it a try, and one good reason to think twice about it up next. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and I recently got back from another Royal Caribbean cruise, and this time I went solo. It's far from my first time ever going by myself on a cruise, but it got me thinking about a question I get all the time, which is is going on a cruise by yourself weird, awkward, a good idea, bad idea? What are my thoughts on it? So today I wanted to share with you why you might want to consider going on a solo cruise, and there's also one big caveat to cruising solo on Royal Caribbean. I think the biggest trepidation people have about going on a cruise by themselves is the sense of being bored, that they'll be by themselves, they're going to feel alone, and the entire cruise they're just going to lament the fact that they don't have someone there with them. And while there are times in which it would be nice to have a friend, family member, somebody you know on board the ship to share in the experience, overall going on a cruise by yourself, I think, is a fantastic idea. Number one, it's a very liberating idea because you get to do what you want to do when you want to do it. When you're cruising with anybody else, whether it's a loved one, a friend, a colleague, whoever, you have to always consider their concerns, at least if you want to be nice to them, of course. And what I mean by that is you've got to, of course, ask, hey, do you want to go do this or this and this? And sometimes you're giving up or you're compromising. It's not always the case, but that is part of that process, of course, being a good friend or loved one. Anyway, when you're cruising by yourself, you don't have to do that, and you get to do exactly what you want. So when you're ready to move on from one activity to another, or stay longer, or decide to skip something altogether, that's totally on you, and you don't have to worry about consulting anybody else. It may seem like a little thing, but honestly, when you do it for the first time, it really makes a big difference, and it's so nice being able to do that. Moreover, you're on a cruise ship. I think unlike going to a city or even a resort on land by yourself, on a cruise ship, there's so much happening that it's not necessarily as reliant on yourself for providing the entertainment. What I mean by this is, of course, there are a number of activities. So I feel like between all the things going on in your cruise and, of course, the shore excursions you're going on as well, that there is sufficient distractions to make you feel like you're part of a group activity without actually being part of a group, if that makes sense. I've often said a cruise is what you make of it. And when it comes to cruising alone, a lot of that holds true because you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of what the ship has to offer. Maybe you're going to the sports court and indulging in a pickup game of some kind. Maybe you're going to the trivia sessions and joining a group, or just playing along and enjoying the activities. You can make idle conversation at the bars, you can go to the casino and try your luck over there, and inevitably you get into a conversation with somebody else about why the luck isn't running out, or hey, maybe everything's going great and you're making a new best friend because both of you are making a lot of money. These are things that can happen on a cruise, and it's a very small microcosm of the type of activities you can expect there. Now, certainly, you could sit in your cabin the entire cruise and do absolutely nothing and meet nobody else, but I think more often than not, people end up being a little more social when they're by themselves on a cruise because of the social nature of a cruise ship vacation to begin with. If you are going on a cruise by yourself, I think there are a couple things I would definitely do differently, or make sure you do. Maybe you do these already, but definitely adhere to them. Number one, buy the Wi-Fi package. I think it's really important to have Wi-Fi when you're cruising by yourself because inevitably there are going to be times in which you are, of course, not going to be with other people and you're going to be by yourself or feel by yourself or just want to have some time alone. Anyway, the advantage of having an internet package is, of course, you can still text or post on social media with friends and family back home. And I felt a really good connection by doing this because it allowed me to stay in contact and communicate without actually, of course, being with someone physically there. Plus, on top of that, you can use the Wi-Fi to stream entertainment back to your device or into your cabin. And I think overall, it's a really smart investment as a solo cruiser. I would also recommend booking group shore excursions. When I went by myself on a cruise to Europe last year, I booked a few different shore excursions through Royal Caribbean, and these were group shore excursions. Now, ordinarily, I don't love group shore excursions. I've done videos here about why I don't love the pacing of them, and that still holds true. However, the advantage of doing a group shore excursion with the cruise line, or really any group for that matter, is that I felt less alone, and it was nice to be able to travel with a group, especially when you're in a country that you're not familiar with. I think there's a real advantage to doing a group shore excursion, both for the social aspect and, of course, the safety and numbers aspect that a group excursion offers you. So, whereas if I was cruising with my family, we might go on our own and do something like in town or explore on our own. I do think when you're cruising by yourself, there is something to be said about doing a shore excursion, and that can be a great way to break up the monotony, maybe, of being by yourself. Booking a cruise by yourself is not only going to give you an opportunity to sail, but it might also be a really good idea for moving up the Crown and Anchor Society ladder. So as you know, there are many tiers within Royal Caribbean's customers loyalty program, and by cruising solo, you'll actually get an extra point per night for doing so. So instead of getting 1 point per night, you'll get 2 points per night. And if you're feeling like going all for it, if you splurge for a suite by yourself, that includes a junior suite by the way, you'll get 3 points per night. And this is one of the best, most effective strategies for moving up the Crown and Anchor Society status as fast as possible. There's a lot of people out there who are looking to get up to diamond status to get those free drinks. One of my very good friends, Erica, who lives nearby, is always saying that her husband, Kenny, should let her go on a cruise by herself in order to get some extra points and move up to diamond status. I'm not sure that's ever going to happen because Kenny, I think, doesn't want to not go on a cruise also. But the idea here is that if you do go with that strategy, it can work out pretty darn well. Now, I'm not saying that you should cruise specifically for points, but if it's a priority for you, then it absolutely can make a difference, especially if you're getting very close to the next tier. Now, that leads me into the one reason maybe to reconsider or not cruise solo, and that is the prices of cruising solo. So if you're like Erica and you want to do your first solo cruise, you might have a little bit of trepidation when you look at the pricing of it because Royal Caribbean charges a single supplement fee when you cruise by yourself. What that means is they assume that when you book almost any cabin out there, that there'll be 2 people in that cabin. And the idea is that if you book a cruise by yourself, even though there's only 1 person going, you are still going to pay the single supplement fee to make up for that lost revenue of the second person. The cruise industry is built on the idea of having double occupancy. Yes, there are other lines out there that maybe differ a little bit, but by far, the majority, vast majority of cabins are designed for double occupancy. So if you're looking at the cruise prices out there and you see, hey, look, there's a cruise out there, it's like $4.99 a person. Sounds like, hey, I'll be able to get the cruise for about $500 plus taxes and fees. Yeah, no, you can double that price because the single supplement will kick in. Now, there is a workaround to this, and that is if you actually book a solo cabin. Now, Royal Caribbean has a few solo cabins on about a dozen of their ships. Royal Caribbean honestly has fallen out of favor with the solo cabins. We haven't seen any new ones being added to any new cruise ship that's come out in the last like 4 or 5 years, but it is an option that's out there. And we have a link down in the description below to the ships that do have solo cabins, but keep in mind there are very few of them. Some ships only have like 1 or 2 cabins total designed for solo cruisers. And if you were to book a solo cabin, also otherwise known as a studio cabin, of course, then you'd be able to maybe take advantage of not having to pay the single supplement fee. In my experience as a solo cruiser, many a time, it's rarely ever an option because these cabins go so quickly that by the time you look to book it, they're probably sold out. And as you might imagine, going in a solo cabin, of course, yeah, they're going to be a lot smaller because they're designed for 1 person. But if you're cruising by yourself, probably you're not going to be spending that much time in the cabin necessarily because you want to be out there and enjoying everything that's else happening on board the ship. Also, something else to keep in mind is if you do book a studio cabin, you do not get the extra point per night for sailing solo. So that only applies when you book a cabin that's designed for 2 people and you're the only one in there. Is the price alone a reason not to cruise solo? That's debatable. In my experience, I kind of just sucked it up a long time ago and just said it is what it is and moved on from it. But it can be a tough pill to swallow when you're first looking at it. Obviously, if you're going to cruise solo and you're going to give it a try, it might be advantageous for you to find a more economically priced cruise out there. Instead of booking a solo cruise on, say, spring break or over Christmas, try to find one in January or during the peak of hurricane season like September or October, in which cruise fare prices tend to be a lot lower. If you do this, then even paying the single supplement fee might not be a bad deal overall. One big area that solo cruising really stands out is when you're trying to eat meals. Now for breakfast and lunch, I don't think it's really that big of a deal because even when you're there with friends and family, if you cruised before, then you know that inevitably it's kind of more of a casual experience, right? You can certainly go to the Windjammer Buffet for breakfast or lunch or one of the other casual restaurants. It's not nearly as formal as dinner. Not that dinner on Royal Caribbean is really that formal, but go with me on this one. But a lot of people have a kind of a trepidation about going and eating by themselves in a sit-down restaurant. Certainly you could go to the Windjammer, by the way, or any other casual restaurant and not have any problems or feel anything different about eating dinner over there. So that's always on the table as an option. But as an example, I tried eating in the main dining room by myself for the very first time when I was on my most recent cruise on Freedom of the Seas, because for a while I'd always avoided it as a solo cruiser. I always felt awkward about it. Not that like I thought anyone would ever call me out and be like, why are you eating by yourself? I just felt a little weird or awkward about the whole situation. But I decided to give it a try on my latest cruise, and to be perfectly honest with you, it was a great experience. Now, you do have the option in the main dining room, of course, having a table by yourself or sharing a table with other people. And there are advantages to both. Some of our staff members, like Allie and Angie, like sharing tables with other people because for the conversation that's out there and being able to meet other cruisers. And that way, by sharing a table with other people on board your ship, you have the opportunity to, of course, have more of a social experience and feel less like you're by yourselves. On the flip side, I found that dining by myself in the main dining room is more of an opportunity to kind of recharge and just enjoy the experience by myself. I don't mind meeting other people by any means, but I do like having a little bit of a break and being able to have some me time there. So when you're choosing your dining options out there, that's another consideration to figure out for dinner. And of course, you can always just bypass it and go to a buffet, order room service, or some other restaurant that's out there. Keeping in mind, by the way, that Royal Caribbean simply does not mind where you eat and if you're eating by yourself. The staff will not mind at all, and quite frankly, no one else is really paying that much attention. They're there on their vacation. They're really not there minding what everyone else is doing and who's sitting with who at whatever table's out there. It's not that uncommon. One other idea I also wanted to share about cruising solo is to, of course, look for online opportunities to meet some folks out there. There are roll calls on Facebook, on our Royal Caribbean blog message boards, and even on Cruise Critic that offer an opportunity to meet up with other people, other members who are going to be on the very same sailing. I usually do this especially when I'm going on a cruise by myself, be able to find folks that are there because it's a fun way to kind of meet folks and already know some few friendly faces on board the ship. Now, rarely do I ever become like best friends with these people and hang out all the time, but occasionally you do meet somebody and you strike up a good conversation and you might end up making a new friend that way. So my recommendation is to look for these roll calls that are out there and be able to meet other people on there. Plus, it's also an opportunity to also plan your cruise and get excited for it in and of itself. So is going on a Royal Caribbean cruise solo a good idea? I absolutely think it's a great idea. And if you have the opportunity, if you're thinking about it, if you're hemming and hawing about it, I would definitely give it a try. It's a different experience, and there are pros and cons to it, but there's pros and cons to everything out there, and there are pros and cons to bringing your family on a cruise. This is the way that life is, and the opportunities for cruising solo are quite nice. It's different, but I overall do enjoy it, and if you're considering doing it, I think it's worth giving it a try. Keeping in mind, by the way, that single supplement fee is not great, but it's not the end of the world and shouldn't stop you necessarily unless, of course, the price is outrageous. Let me know in the comments below, have you ever tried cruising solo and would you recommend it to anybody out there? Let me know your best solo cruising tips in the comments below. While you're down below our video, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. That way, YouTube lets you know we have a brand new video to share. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.